Next month, Pennsylvanians will head to the polls to pick their next Attorney General. And tonight, Republican Dave Sunday.
If communities aren't safe, then nothing else matters.
As well as Democrat Eugene DePasquale.
I have a record of protecting Pennsylvanians.
Are trying to earn your vote. They're taking the stage here at WGAL and taking questions about how they will protect you. This is News 8's Commitment 2024 Attorney General Debate. Now, here is your moderator, Brian Roach.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am your moderator, Brian Roach. Right off the top here, I'd like to take a moment and thank York County District Attorney Dave Sunday, as well as former State Auditor General and State Representative Eugene DePasquale for joining us for the next hour. In just a moment, you will hear their opening remarks. But first, let's review the rules for this debate. Each candidate will have 60 seconds for opening and closing remarks. They will also have 60 seconds to answer questions. If I ask either one of them a follow-up or give them a chance for a rebuttal, they will have 30 seconds to respond. They will not be allowed to ask each other questions. The order has been determined ahead of time, and we will alternate throughout the debate. And speaking of time, there is a clock that the candidates and I can see. As it counts down, it will change colors from green to yellow to red when they run out of time. And if necessary, I will let them know when their time is up. Now we get to opening remarks. Again, the candidates will have 60 seconds, and we will start with you, Mr. DePasquale.
Thank you for tuning in. My name is Eugene DePasquale, and I want to be your Attorney General. As Pennsylvania's top investigator, you saw my work protecting Pennsylvanians. It was my investigation that found over 3,000 untested rape kits getting violent rapists off the street. It was my investigation that found 58,000 unanswered phone calls at the Child Abuse Hotline, protecting children all over our state. But I also want to talk to you about my values. I know what it's like to struggle. My brother Anthony had muscular dystrophy. Because of that, we never had health insurance when we were kids. I know what it's like to see both sides of the criminal justice system. My dad was wounded in Vietnam, became addicted to painkillers, was eventually incarcerated. And I also know the importance of defending a woman's right to choose. Our own family had an ectopic pregnancy. That's why I will always protect a woman's right to choose. I'm going to use my values and my experience to protect our communities, protect seniors, protect children, and be your Attorney General.
And now opening statements from Dave Sunday.
Thank you. My name's Dave Sunday. I'm a father, I'm a husband, who also happens to be a district attorney. For 15 years, I've been a prosecutor in York County, and I have seen the best and the absolute worst that society has to offer. I know what dangers we face, and because of that, I know that we must have an experienced criminal prosecutor to be the Attorney General. I have been a prosecutor in York for 15 years, and during that time period, not only was I a homicide trial litigator, and I've looked at juries right in the eye, and I have asked them to return verdicts of guilty, holding murderers accountable. I have also worked relentlessly to increase access to treatment for people that have substance abuse disorder. I've worked to help people in the mental health crisis to get mental health treatment, and I've also worked to break the cycle of crime by doing everything we can to help people as they're returning home from prison. I'm Dave Sunday, and I'm running for Attorney General. My philosophy is that if the communities aren't safe, nothing else matters.
Gentlemen, thank you for your opening statements. And now for our first question of the evening. If elected Attorney General, what would be your top priority and how would you address it? Again, you will have 60 seconds. Mr. DePasquale, we start with you.
Great, thank you. Number one, we must make sure that we protect our democracy. It has clearly been under threat, and we also have to make sure that our democracy is working for everybody. The next Attorney General will be dealing with litigation that will protect everyone's right to vote and make sure that that vote is counted accurately. After that is done and we are sworn in, protecting our communities, protecting our seniors, protecting consumers who are being tried to be scammed by these fraudsters every single day, and also defending a woman's right to choose. Those will be my top priorities, and I have the experience to do it. I've investigating our nursing home industry to make sure our seniors are better protected. I've also taken on crisis pregnancy centers that were trying to scam women. I've also protected children and also made sure our children had a better education system as your Auditor General. That is the experience of Pennsylvania's top investigator that I will bring as your Attorney General starting on day one, protecting our communities, protecting a woman's right to choose, protecting seniors, and protecting children.
Mr. Sunday, the same question. What would be your top priority and how would you address it? You have 60 seconds.
So people need to understand the Attorney General of Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania's top prosecutor. That's by law, that's by statute. And as such, we need an experienced prosecutor to do that job. Great work was done in the Auditor General's office, but that has nothing to do with criminal law. I started out as a young prosecutor after coming home from the Navy, where I was a veteran. I served overseas. I worked at UPS through college and law school. And when I came and I started as a prosecutor, I started in the courtroom. And I worked my way up. I ran our major crimes unit, our felony drug unit. I was chief of litigation. I was a special appointed United States attorney. I was elected district attorney, and then I was also reelected as district attorney in York. And I can tell you right now, if our community's not safe, nothing else matters. Our children are facing a brutal epidemic in fentanyl that kills 15 Pennsylvanians every day. We're looking at internet crime where predators are going after our children every single day. And we have seniors that are being attacked relentlessly from people that are trying to defraud them. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. Now is the time for an experienced prosecutor.
Thank you. Moving on now to our next question. According to the State Uniform Crime Reporting System, the number of offenses recorded statewide so far this year is down about 20% compared to the same period last year. Now, assuming those statistics are accurate, how would you ensure crime continues to decline across the Commonwealth? Mr. Sunday, you will go first. 60 seconds.
So in York County, I'm the DA in York County. We're a county directly north of Baltimore. And in that capacity, we've lowered our overall crime rate by 41% since the 10-year high. We've lowered our gang gun violence rate by 80%, and we've lowered our homicide rate by 75%. The way that this was done was by coming together as a community. We started our group violence initiative in 2016, and that's had tremendous outcomes. And that has been done by effective law enforcement strategies that a prosecutor knows. It's been done by collaborating with the community. It's been done by making sure all the agencies work together to achieve a total outcome. My philosophy is accountability and redemption. You must hold people accountable. Even though those numbers have gone down slightly, we can never take our foot off the pedal. That's not what we've done in York. That's not what I've done as a prosecutor. When you look at crime, you have to remember that the children that are in communities have trauma like you wouldn't believe as a result of it, and it's something that we can never stop fighting.
Mr. DePasquale, the same question. How would you ensure crime continues to decline across the Commonwealth? You have 60 seconds.
Those statistics are good, but they're not good enough. And as your Attorney General, I'll make sure they go down even further. As state's top investigator, I made sure that we got rapists off the street, and I also made sure our children were better protected. That same type of statewide experience is exactly what I'll use, building relationships with our district attorneys and law enforcement all over Pennsylvania, building partnerships with drug treatment programs, building partnerships with our job training programs to make sure that when people come out of prison, that they're able to get a job. That's why law enforcement all over Pennsylvania has endorsed my candidacy. They know I have the right type of experience, the right type of leadership, and the right vision to make sure that we lower crime, protect our communities, and when people do make that offense. And look, my dad was someone that was incarcerated, so I know how important this is, that we get them the help in prison so that when they come out of prison, they are able to live a productive life. That's good for our communities, it's good for taxpayers, and it's good for their families.
Mr. Sunday, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
I've been endorsed by the Pennsylvania Fraternal Order of Police, and I've also been endorsed by the Pennsylvania State Troopers Association, and that's because of my record as a prosecutor. Only one person standing here has ever been a prosecutor. Only one person standing here has ever been in front of a jury. Only one person standing here has ever conducted a criminal investigation. The Attorney General is Pennsylvania's top law enforcement officer that oversees hundreds of prosecutors that conduct criminal investigations. And that's what I'm here, and that's why I'm running for Attorney General.
Mr. DePasquale, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yes, I'm the only one that's run a complicated statewide agency. That's the type of leadership we'll need on day one. And that's why, particularly on my work on protecting children and cracking down on the untested rape kits, is why law enforcement has also endorsed me in this campaign. But I also don't have experience giving sweetheart deals to sexual predators. I don't have that type of experience. Dave has that type of experience. I don't have experience on botched prosecutions, and I don't have experience on trying to convict the wrong person.
Gentlemen, we're going to stay on the subject of crime. What do you think is the root of violent crime in Pennsylvania, and what would you do to fix it? We'll have 60 seconds, starting with Mr. DePasquale.
Look, it's a great question. Some people clearly are prone to violence, and we must punish them to the fullest extent of the law. We also have a mental health crisis, not only in Pennsylvania, but across the United States. You know, Dave has a younger child, my kids are older now, but we've both probably experienced as parents what happens with social media and what that does to these kids trying to create a culture of violence. I think, to be blunt, there are too many people with mental health challenges that have access to firearms. We need to make sure that we have red flag laws in Pennsylvania so that people that are prone to violence have limited access to firearms. Those are the type of things we need to do. But if anyone commits any type of violence against a human being, we need to punish them to the fullest extent of the law. But we also need to make sure that people that are prone to violence have limited access to firearms. And we also make sure the kids, particularly our children in Pennsylvania, get the mental health help they need. That's one of the reasons why I will be taking a hard look at these social media companies, seeing what they do to our kids and holding them fully accountable for that.
Mr. Sunday, the same question. In 60 seconds, what do you think is the root of violent crime in Pennsylvania, and what would you do to fix it?
So I mentioned previously about the group violence initiative that we worked on in New York, and that's how we've lowered crime head on. Again, 80% decrease in homicide rate, 80% decrease in gang gun violence, 75% decrease in our homicide rate. Overdose deaths are down 26%. And I want to say something because this is important. When you talk about violent crime, there's a core constituency that's involved here, and those are prosecutors in a courtroom. And my opponent just previously mentioned a few cases. I would love nothing more than to stand here with him and put all the cases we've tried and prosecuted side by side, but that's not possible because he's never done one. And because he's a political operative, he chose to find a couple cases out of the over 40,000 cases my office has prosecuted, and he highlighted a case where a young girl had the courage to walk into a courtroom, to look at a jury, to then be cross-examined by 3 different defense attorneys, and then the jury made their decision. He's re-victimizing her every time he runs the commercials he's running, and he's doing it because he doesn't fundamentally understand what a prosecutor is.
Mr. DePasquale, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
I fundamentally know what it's like to be a statewide leader and to protect Pennsylvanians, and to conduct tough investigations to get violent rapists off the street, to protect our children, to lower prices for seniors on prescription drugs, and to make sure our nursing home industry is safer. That's the type of experience I have. And again, he's botched prosecutions. He has to live with that. He has tried to prosecute the wrong person. He has to live with that. I do not have that type of experience. I have the experience of going after bad actors, no matter who they are, holding bad people accountable, going after Republicans and Democrats. When I was Auditor General, I was tough and fair on a Republican governor and tough and fair on a Democratic governor. That's the type of leadership I'll bring every single day as your Attorney General.
Mr. DePasquale, thank you. Dave, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
Again, the reality is this: when you're a political operative and your entire life has been politics, everything you say comes through that lens. When you're a prosecutor, every prosecutor out there, every police officer out there, every victim out there knows of the 40,000 plus cases my office has prosecuted, the guy that literally has never done it picked a couple to talk about. And he has no clue what it takes for these victims and the courage to walk into a courtroom, look at a jury, and say what happens to him. That is a reprehensible statement for him to make.
We're going to move on to our next question now. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been 26 mass shootings in Pennsylvania so far this year, compared to 35 last year. In 60 seconds, what gun control measures do you support? And we will start with you, Mr. Sunday.
So turning to what has worked for us in York, I've mentioned the stats a few times, but what we have discovered very quickly is obviously there's downstream legislative issues that can take place. But when you look at the role right now of making our community safe, you have to look at what has worked. And so what has worked for us is the Group Violence Initiative. That is something that's utilized. It's a database, it's an evidence-based program, but it's all over the country where we work every day with the community. And so the first part of it is making sure that we identify the people that have the highest likelihood of shooting. And we do everything we can to hold them accountable. They must be held accountable. They must go to jail. At the same time, we have people that are community messengers that work every day with the community itself, so that we're in a constant communication with the citizens, like our Black Ministers Association, nonprofits, people on block leaders, and then you take all of the services that exist, you wrap it around together, and you follow the rule of law. Everybody does their job, and that's how we've seen these amazing outcomes.
Thank you. Mr. DePasquale, what gun measures do you support?
Yeah, so for starters, we're pretty good in Pennsylvania by cracking down on the person that pulls the trigger. But we need to get even better at the person that sells that gun illegally. And if anyone is liable or is negligible in giving that person access to the gun, whether it's a child or someone with a mental challenge, we need to hold that person accountable as well. As your Attorney General, I will enforce the law, but I'll also make sure we go after the other bad actors that are selling the gun illegally. And I also will make sure that we advocate Again, I can't make the legislature do it, but advocate for critical laws that I believe will make our communities safer. We need to make sure we have universal background checks across Pennsylvania. We need to close the gun show loophole. We need to have a red flag law that makes sure that people that have a mental health challenge and they're a danger to themselves or others have that gun temporarily taken away. 2/3 of all firearm deaths in Pennsylvania are the result of suicide. That's part of our mental health crisis. As your Attorney General, I'll lead the fight to make sure the people that need the help get the help they need.
Mr. Sunday, 30 seconds.
One of the most important issues facing Pennsylvanians is the mental health crisis. As a district attorney, I've collaborated with WellSpan, our regional community, our hospital, and all of the police, and we created this entire situation where law enforcement have the ability to help someone go and have an immediate mental health assessment at what's called the START Clinic. I say this very simply because public-private partnerships of this nature keep people out of prison. It helps people to get into mental health treatment, and it will stem off a lot of these instances of crime that happen down the road. This is unbelievably important.
Mr. DePasquale, 30 seconds to respond.
I agree with Dave. We need more public-private partnerships to help cut down on mental health crisis. Following the horrific shooting at Stoneman Douglas in Florida, I led the school safety task force, going to school districts all over Pennsylvania, hearing from young students who are now young adults on what is happening to them, the mental health crisis that they are facing. We need to make sure we're getting more mental health counselors into our schools. And we need to hold these social media companies accountable that are trying to get into our kids' brains every single day. This is a comprehensive problem. It will need a comprehensive solution. I have the experience to know how to put together those coalitions. That's exactly what I'll do as your Attorney General.
Now for our next question. Pregnancies can be ended in the Commonwealth up to 24 weeks gestation. Abortions can be performed after that cutoff if a pregnant person's life or health is in danger. Pre-abortion counseling is required in Pennsylvania, and minors must have the consent of a parent or guardian. In 60 seconds, if an abortion ban were to take effect in Pennsylvania, would you prosecute a person who has had an abortion or a doctor who performs one? We start with you, Mr. DePasquale.
I want to be very clear. I will never prosecute a woman or a doctor that performs an abortion. If you want someone that's going to put a woman in jail that has an abortion, you're going to need another Attorney General, because it's not going to be me. Our family has an experience with this. We had an ectopic pregnancy at week 10. What was technically an abortion that night saved Tracy's life and preserved our ability to have 2 kids who are now doing great, 24 and 21 respectively, and we couldn't be any happier with our kids. But in 5 states today, that could land Tracy, myself, and Dr. Ross in prison for making that decision. So I want to be as clear as I can be on anything. I will always protect a woman's right to an abortion. I will defend reproductive freedom. That's why Planned Parenthood has endorsed me in this campaign. I will never prosecute a woman for having an abortion, and I will protect any woman that's coming here from one of those states. I will defend their right to reproductive freedom as well.
Mr. Sunday, the same question. Would you prosecute a person who has an abortion or a doctor who performs one if a ban took effect in Pennsylvania? Sure. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you for the question. I talk about this with my wife on a regular basis. I talk about it with my mom on a regular basis. And what I've discovered is a lot of people are still unclear on a few things. In Pennsylvania, abortion is legal through the end of the 6th month of pregnancy. And after that, there's exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. That's the law in Pennsylvania. That's been the law here for over 40 years. I was like 6 when that law was passed. And just like I would every other law, I will absolutely enforce and defend the abortion laws in Pennsylvania, period. When you talk about potential future legislation, the reality is you're talking about the will of 13 million Pennsylvanians and what it is that they want. I have enough belief in the citizens of Pennsylvania, in our legislature and in the governor, to believe that what you're talking about just would never happen. It would never happen. And that's something that I feel very strongly about. I will absolutely support the abortion laws in Pennsylvania.
So this is a very important subject, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, Mr. DePasquale.
Project 2025 is calling for a nationwide ban, and Republican allies of Dave are trying to push a constitutional amendment in the legislature that would override the governor and create a statewide ban in Pennsylvania. You heard him not say it right there. I'll say it again. I will never prosecute a woman for having an abortion. There are attempts right now to ban it nationwide. Project 2025, he's being funded by a billionaire that wants that nationwide ban. I will never prosecute a woman for having an abortion, ever.
Mr. Sunday, 30 seconds.
So again, this goes back to a constant theme. My opponent, who's a professional politician, is throwing out words to scare people like Project 2025. The reality is very simple. As a prosecutor, as a district attorney, we follow the facts and the law. There's no scenario that exists where I would ever prosecute a woman for having an abortion, period. He's trying to scare you because he's never done the job. He's never been a prosecutor. He's never even been in a courtroom to try a case. He's saying things to scare people. I will not do that.
Thank you, Mr. Sunday. Moving on now to our next question. According to a Franklin and Marshall College poll that was released in August, more than half of registered voters believe that Governor Josh Shapiro is doing an excellent or good job. So in 60 seconds, how would you work with the governor, and how do you envision the relationship between the Attorney General's office and the governor's office? We start with you, Mr. Sunday.
As a district attorney and as a member of the executive board of the District Attorneys Association, I was on the Sentencing Commission. I'm chair of education and training. I have worked seamlessly with the governor's office when he was the Attorney General. I've worked with all of the people around him seamlessly. I currently work almost daily with our current Attorney General, Michelle Henry. The reality is this. When you go back to the work of a prosecutor, of the Attorney General, of a district attorney, there's no room for politics. It's got to be out the door. It's got to stay somewhere else. Because what we do is we apply the law to the facts in the case. We fight for victims. We fight for things that are right. We go into a courtroom and have to deal with judges, defense attorneys, and things of that nature. When it comes down to this job, when you take an oath to protect and serve, you work with everybody. And so to that point, God willing, I'm Attorney General, I would look forward to working with the governor. I'm sure we would accomplish many things like we did when he was the Attorney General.
Mr. DePasquale, in 60 seconds, how would you work with the governor's office if elected Attorney General?
First of all, Josh Shapiro is supporting me in this campaign for Attorney General. We've worked together for over 20 years. We were legislators together, working together to pass a ban on texting while driving and making sure that we had just laws across Pennsylvania. We were fellow row officers. He was Attorney General, I was Auditor General at the exact same time, rooting out corruption all over Pennsylvania. And that's another reason why he is supporting me. And our experience is very similar. When he became Attorney General, he had a very similar background that I did, and I believe he did pretty good at the job. But as Attorney General, my job is to make sure that we uphold the law and go after bad actors no matter who they are. I'll be a tough, fair, and independent watchdog. That's exactly what I was as Auditor General. That's exactly what I'll be as your Attorney General.
Mr. Sunday, 30 seconds.
Sure. So Governor Shapiro ran the state's largest criminal justice policy and grant-making agency in Pennsylvania. He didn't. Governor Shapiro was an attorney. He practiced law at a large law firm in Philadelphia. He didn't. And also, Governor Shapiro, as a county commissioner, worked with the district attorney, with the sheriff, with the public defender's office, with people all throughout his community on all these criminal justice issues, not auditing issues, criminal justice issues, and he didn't.
Mr. DePasquale, 30 seconds.
I've been a state constitutional law professor. I've been an environmental attorney. I've been an energy attorney. I've been a local government attorney. And I served on the Judiciary Committee and ran a large law department at the Auditor General's office. I have the experience on day one, including conducting tough statewide investigations, the exact type of experience that we need to be your Attorney General. I know what it takes to do the job, and that's what I'll do.
In another Franklin and Marshall College poll released last month, the economy is the most often mentioned problem facing the state. In 60 seconds, what would you do to enhance protections for consumers of their hard-earned money? We'll start with you, Mr. DePasquale, 60 seconds.
Great, thank you. There are clearly two main themes that I want to address when it comes to the economy. Number one is these scammers that are trying to harm our seniors and pretty much all of us every single day. The text messages, the phone calls, they simply don't stop. Obviously, you have to hold them accountable in court, but you also have to build partnerships with other state attorneys general across the country. You also have to develop partnerships with the FBI because these are very rarely just focused in Pennsylvania. So we have to hold these companies accountable and we have to punish them to the fullest extent of the law. But I also believe another impact on our economy are workers getting scammed out of their wages by bad faith contractors. I will have a vigorous labor department in the office of the Attorney General. I will make sure that we hold contractors responsible that are trying to not pay their taxes and not pay their workers. by what is known as misclassification, making sure that anyone that doesn't pay their workers what they're legally obligated will be punished to the fullest extent of the law, for me as Attorney General.
Mr. Sunday, 60 seconds. What would you do to enhance protections for consumers?
So number one, I would do exactly what my opponent recommended to be done, what we have been doing. So as a district attorney, we have an elder abuse task force. We work with the area on aging. We work with the local financial industries or the local banking industry. We work with the Attorney General's office. We work with our federal partners, and we go to senior centers. We do everything we can to help train and prevent seniors from being frauded. At the same time, I've conducted complex investigations, criminal investigations, and conducted complex criminal jury trials with regard to fraud that has been conducted against seniors successfully. At the same time, when you look at our economy, one of the number one places we can make a difference is people returning home from prison. We have worked relentlessly to set up circumstances where people coming back from prison after they've been held accountable have opportunities to move into employment. When that group works, they're increasing, they're paying taxes, they're paying their restitution, they're taking care of families, and the odds of them committing more crimes goes down drastically.
Gentlemen, I can tell you both we're not done with the topic of protecting consumers tonight. That brings us to our first and only break of the night, but don't go anywhere because we have plenty more coming your way. Our Commitment 2024 Attorney General debate continues in just a few minutes. And welcome back to our Commitment 2024 Attorney General debate. Again, I am joined by Republican Dave Sunday and Democrat Eugene DePasquale. As I promised, we're going to stay on the subject of consumer protections. Several states that border Pennsylvania require home repair contractors to pass required proficiency exams in order to get a contractor's license. But here in Pennsylvania, contractors only need to just register with the state to start doing home repairs, making consumers potentially vulnerable to unqualified individuals claiming to be knowledgeable contractors. Now, keeping in mind that the state legislature would have to enact some kind of contractor licensing requirement, as Attorney General, would you be in favor of enhancing those contractor requirements that your office would have to enforce? You have 60 seconds, starting with you, Mr. Sunday. Absolutely.
I can tell you right now, some of the most gut-wrenching cases I've tried are cases where you had someone who had money stolen from them by a contractor, a dubious contractor, someone that might not even really been a contractor. And I had a case where an older gentleman, someone knocked on his door and they wanted to fix his driveway, and he paid him to do it. The person came back the next day. He paid him again. He paid him like 20 days in a row. And the reason is because the victim had memory loss as a senior. And so the unscrupulous actor kept coming back and taking his money day after day, and the guy forgot that he was even writing him checks. And so that was one of the most horrific cases I saw. We took that case to trial, we prosecuted it, and we convicted him of all the felonies. And I can tell you right now, that's one that we were able to help, but there's so many that we have not been able to because maybe it didn't come to us. And so with an aging population, I mean, this is one of the most important things that we are dealing with right now.
Mr. DePasquale, the same question. Would you be in favor of enhancing contractor requirements here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
The short answer is yes. Obviously, that's a job for the legislature, but some counties are actually taking the leadership initiative on this. Delaware County, Centre County, for example, I went up and actually helped make the case for Centre County to pass their own responsible contracting ordinance because the legislature simply has not taken action on this. I would support if the legislature does it, and if they won't do it, I'll support individual counties doing it because we all know every single one of us has been impacted in some way, shape, or form by one of these bad faith contractors. And something that's happening all over our state right now, these contractors are risking the health and safety of their workers. They're risking the environment. They're also trying to scam seniors and all homeowners. It happens every single day. We need to make sure that it's not just York County that prosecutes these cases, or Delaware County or Centre County. We need to make sure that you have a safe home environment no matter what zip code you're in. I'll make the case that we should do that statewide, and I will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law anyone that tries to harm any of our seniors and tries to scam any of our Pennsylvania consumers.
Seems that you're both in agreement on that issue. Moving on to our next question. In 2023, Governor Josh Shapiro announced that he would continue former Governor Tom Wolf's moratorium on executions and called upon the General Assembly to repeal the death penalty. Right now, a bill is in the State House that would do just that. So in 60 seconds, what is your position on capital punishment? Mr. DePasquale, we start with you.
I have serious concerns about capital punishment. I believe life in prison is a very tough sentence. And it also gives you the ability that if there is a mistake in the conviction, to trying to correct that error. So again, I have serious reservations about capital punishment, as does Governor Josh Shapiro. Having said that, it is the law, and we will enforce the law to the fullest extent. But I want to make it clear, I have deep reservations about capital punishment, as does Governor Shapiro, and I do support the legislature making it illegal in Pennsylvania.
Mr. Sunday, your position on capital punishment, 60 seconds.
So I've worked on this issue throughout Pennsylvania, throughout our District Attorneys Association. We've discussed it anecdotally through the Sentencing Commission. I've worked on this with police and prosecutors literally across the state. And I also have the experience of actually trying and being in court for death penalty cases. And I can tell you as a prosecutor that those cases are just some of the absolute most sad, tragic, terrible cases you could possibly have. The legislature has made it clear that there are certain factors that if they're at play, then the jury could have the ability to render a verdict of death. When you talk about some of the brutal, violent murders of police officers, the just sad, brutal murders of children, if the death penalty is called for in those cases, then I will support it and I will seek the death penalty, but we have to be very cautious about it. We have to be thoughtful about it, and it has to be the last result, not the first.
Thank you very much. Our next question revolves around protecting children. The Commonwealth spends millions on mandated reporting, training of suspected child abusers, but the content and the quality of the reports are being called into question more often these days. So in 60 seconds, what do you see as the role of the Attorney General's office in ensuring that Pennsylvania's mandatory reporting policies and training are achieving the goals of stopping child abuse? We'll start with you, Mr. Sunday.
So to begin with, as a district attorney, I work with the Attorney General's office, almost daily. And we collaborate and work on best practices. We work on complex criminal investigations. We work on initiatives like the Law Enforcement Treatment Initiative that's come out of the Attorney General's office, because a lot of people don't realize that the AG's office, they don't have their own courthouse. And so all the AG's prosecutors are in all the county courthouses with the county ADAs in front of the exact same judges with the exact same law. And so we collaborate closely together all throughout Pennsylvania. And so to that point, when you look at things such as training, I'm chair of Education and Training Committee for the association. We already have a system in place that allows us to push training out, to do it in an effective and efficient manner, to make sure that people understand as prosecutors like what is needed under all of these scenarios, and to work together collaboratively to make sure that it's effective, because we have to protect children. It is one of our absolute most important duties as prosecutors. And so with regard to that specific question, that's what I would do.
Thank you. Mr. DePasquale, the same question. What do you see as the Attorney General's role in ensuring that Pennsylvania's mandatory reporting policies and training are achieving goals of preventing and stopping child abuse? 60 seconds.
It was my investigation into this system that uncovered the problems, finding 58,000 unanswered phone calls at the child abuse hotline. Any single one of those calls could have been life or death for a child. I also traveled to every single county in our Commonwealth, meeting with child protection workers, seeing how they are inundated and overworked with paperwork, and they simply can't get out into the field and do the work they need to do to better protect our children. We need to hire more caseworkers. We need to get a better computer system. We need to get better training. And we also need to have better backup so that when these child protection workers are going into some of the most difficult situations you could imagine, potentially needing to take a child from the home, that they have appropriate law enforcement backup and know that law enforcement can be there for them when they go into those homes. I also know as a parent of a young daughter, now she's 21 now, but I saw her grow up in this world of social media. We need to make sure that we are holding social media companies accountable that are trying to harm our kids' brains as well.
Gentlemen, a follow-up question for both of you. Is the answer here more money to this problem, to ensuring that this happens, mandatory reporting is followed through? Mr. Sunday?
I think that you can't just throw money at everything to assume it's going to fix a problem. I think that to begin with, you have to conduct an assessment. You have to find out exactly what's going on out there and why it's not happening. I think that it's important that you make sure that people are doing their jobs first. So for example, I go back to our GVI initiative in York with regard to gang violence. The way that we've been successful is by making sure that everyone is doing the jobs that they're supposed to be doing. We didn't just throw money at it. And so to this point, After an assessment's done, if there needs to be additional resources, then yes, that would certainly be appropriate. But we have to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible to the taxpayers as well.
Mr. DePasquale, 30 seconds.
I've already done this assessment, and the system's not working. We need to make sure that the money we are spending is going where it needs to go, and if it calls for additional spending, we need to make sure that those dollars are going where they need to go as well. Our child protection workers across the state are literally getting bombarded every single day. They don't have the tools they need to do the job. We need to make sure that there are better partnerships with child protection workers and law enforcement to make sure that when they need to protect our children, they have the tools to do it. My investigation helped uncover that, and as Attorney General, I'll make sure those workers get the tools they need to better protect our children.
Thank you. Moving on to our next question. Human trafficking is a form of abuse that involves the exploitation of people for profit. Victims can be anyone, but women and girls most often are the ones involved. According to the Human Trafficking Search, in 2023, Pennsylvania was ranked number 11 in the country for human trafficking cases reported. So in 60 seconds, how would you combat human trafficking in Pennsylvania? We start with you, Mr. DePasquale, 60 seconds.
Thank you, and this is an absolute human tragedy. Every single one of these people are being victimized every single day. How do you do it? First of all, you prosecute the bad actors to the fullest extent of the law. And you do what I've already done, and that is build partnerships across the state and even across the country, because this is not something that can be done just alone in Pennsylvania. You have to develop partnerships with the FBI, with local law enforcement, and with state police, and even the Justice Department to make sure that we have the proper chain of command and the proper connections to make sure that we are catching these people and prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law. That's part of where my statewide investigatory experience comes in, building those partnerships. That's something I've already done, and that's exactly what I'll do as your Attorney General.
Mr. Sunday, in 60 seconds, how would you combat human trafficking?
So to begin with, it's important for people to recognize that when my opponent talks about his investigative experience, they need to understand that these are not criminal investigations. These aren't investigations that have occurred in front of a grand jury. It's just important to recognize that. My entire career has been criminal investigations, complex investigations in a grand jury, complex criminal investigations, because every one of those ultimately will lead to a courtroom. With regard to human trafficking, we have a human trafficking task force. And my office has led large, complex human trafficking investigations all throughout Pennsylvania, where we've collaborated and worked with our federal partners, our state partners, our local partners, other counties. We have worked relentlessly with victim services, because one of the things that we need to remember with regard to human trafficking, first and foremost, are the victims. These victims oftentimes have severe drug addiction, severe mental health issues. A lot of times they're young. And the first thing that we do is make sure that we can get them the services to be okay. And then we go after the bad actor, the people that are funding this. That's how this is done.
Mr. DePasquale, 30 seconds to respond.
It was my investigation that found over 3,000 untested rape kits. Any single one of those was a human tragedy. But the work of myself and my team, we cleared that backlog, we got hundreds of rapists off the street, and we brought justice to victims. I hope you're not suggesting getting those rapists off the street wasn't an important thing to do.
Mr. Sunday, 30 seconds.
I never said that wasn't important. In fact, I said I'm very happy that it was done, but you do have to acknowledge that those are not criminal investigations at all. They're not within the confines of the rules of evidence, the criminal law. It has nothing to do with it in any way, shape, or form. But I am grateful for the work that your office did to get to fix the rape kit backlog. Very important.
Our next question now has to focus on immigration. How does immigration impact Pennsylvania? Very simple question. We will start with you, Mr. Sunday, in 60 seconds.
Well, I'm going to begin very simply with the fact that I'm very blessed. My wife moved here from Southeast Asia, from Sri Lanka, when she was about 3 years of age. My in-laws are obviously from Sri Lanka. They live with us. That's the home that I live in. My son he's 9. He's in 4th grade. And so, you know, living with a family of naturalized citizens has blessed my life, and it's really just taught me things that I would have never even understood. So to begin with, legal immigration is a critical, foundational part of our society. But with regard to the border itself, We've got to we have got to have security at that border, because the fentanyl that's killing 15 Pennsylvanians every day is coming across that border. That's where it's coming from. That is an absolute, it is a mission critical component of public safety that we stop that fentanyl from flowing over the border.
Mr. DePasquale, in your opinion, how does illegal immigration affect Pennsylvania?
We are a nation of immigrants. I'm fourth generation. You can probably tell by the last name DePasquale that I am Italian. We are a nation of immigrants, but it should be legal immigration. Look, this is where Washington, D.C. has failed all of us. We need common sense border security. And we also need to reform our immigration system so the people that are following the rules are able to go to the front of the line, and anyone that tries to cross over illegally is stopped. That's just common sense. But we also need to have compassion for the people that are here, particularly the children, making sure that we're looking out for the children that are born here in the United States. But I do know that we need to make sure that anyone that tries to harm a human being, whether they're here illegally or not, is punished to the fullest extent of the law. That is something that is critical that we do every single day. But when it comes to the border, Washington, D.C. has failed us. Common sense border security is critical.
Gentlemen, we're covering a number of great issues here tonight for the voters of Pennsylvania. Let's move along now to our next question. Are there racial disparities in the criminal justice system, in your opinion? If so, what are they, and how would you address them? We will have 60 seconds, beginning with Mr. DePasquale.
Look, I do believe that it is important that we have fairness across and justice across our state. We have a wrongful conviction unit in the Office of the Attorney General. I will make sure that that office has the resources it needs to find out if there are any wrongful convictions in Pennsylvania, and we hold the individuals accountable that did commit the law, and if somebody didn't, then we make sure that they get their appropriate justice. Do I believe that there are times when people have racist intentions out there? The answer is yes. Do I believe that there are times that there are two justice systems for people of color and for people that aren't? Yes. Do I also think there are sometimes two justice systems for people that have economic means and people that don't? The answer to that is yes. I saw this firsthand when I investigated and found the untested rape kits. There were a lot of people of color in there that didn't have their kits tested, but it's also people that have poor economic means. We need to make sure that we have a justice system that's fair regardless of who you are. As Attorney General, I'll fight to make sure that we have the fairest system on earth.
Mr. Sunday, the same question in 60 seconds. Do you believe there are racial disparities in the criminal justice system in Pennsylvania? If so, what are they? How would you correct them?
Well, as a career prosecutor, we take this unbelievably seriously. And I can tell you that there's no one that would not acknowledge that at some point in the past, there were racial disparities in our criminal justice system. What I can say that as we've moved forward, we have embraced things like procedural justice. As a chair of education and training, I put on a training for procedural justice so we understand how to make sure that we are attacking these issues head on. When you look at the Sentencing Commission, we worked very, very hard to ensure that the sentencing guidelines for all of Pennsylvania were redone in a way in which it would minimize any impact of this nature. The Attorney General's office does have a wrongful conviction unit. And when that unit was created, there was one district attorney's office in all of Pennsylvania that reached out and said, I want you to bring that unit to my office and give a presentation for all of my lawyers. And that was me. I made that request because I know how critical it is when you're running a law firm to train lawyers in what matters.
Thank you, Mr. Sunday. Moving along, according to the state's Department of Aging, Pennsylvania is home to 3.4 million older adults, the fifth highest total in the country. So in your opinion, what is the greatest threat to Pennsylvania's senior citizens? You will have 60 seconds, starting with Mr. DePasquale.
Thank you. And this is an issue that I've already taken head on. I've investigated abuses in our nursing home industry, making sure that we improve the safety of our nursing homes for older Pennsylvanians and improving the health and safety, the worker to patient ratio in those, and also making sure that the food was safer in those facilities. I've also investigated big pharma and what are known as pharmacy benefit managers. These are the people that are putting local pharmacists out of work, raising your prescription drug prices. I've held them accountable. That has led directly to the legislature recently passing a law that will lower our prescription drug prices. We all know our seniors are some of the most vulnerable Pennsylvanians out there, from these consumer scams to higher prescription drug prices to assisted living and to nursing home living. I have already investigated those systems. I've done work to make sure that they are safer. That's exactly the type of leadership I'll bring as Attorney General. And if anyone tries to harm a senior, I will prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law.
Mr. Sunday, in 60 seconds, what do you think is the single greatest threat to Pennsylvania senior citizens?
So considering the Attorney General is the state's top prosecutor, we're talking about criminal law here for part of this. And the reality is, right now, and I talk to my parents every day, and I'm sure they're watching, every day we talk about the amount of scams that they get on their phones. Right now, we have a huge issue with the advent of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence has taken the level of scams to a place that we could have never even thought of. The complexity, the amount of times the scams happen every day. We're at a place now where sometimes police can't even determine whether or not something is a scam. We have to, like I've done in New York, where we created an entire computer forensics team. We have to go head on with technology, because we got to protect seniors so that they don't get scammed. The amount of money right now that is the average amount of money that is stolen from a senior during a scam is $38,000. And I'm going to tell you right now, if someone took $38,000 from me, I'd be in trouble. We have to do everything we can to fight to protect seniors so that they can be safe, happy, and healthy in their aging years.
Thank you. Let's move on to the subject of marijuana. Except for West Virginia, all of Pennsylvania's neighbors have fully legalized marijuana. In 60 seconds, in your opinion, what do you think would be the benefits or drawbacks to the criminal justice system of legalizing marijuana use here in Pennsylvania? Mr. Sunday, we start with you.
Sure. So I'm speaking about this through the lens of a chief law enforcement officer, which I currently am, as a district attorney running for Attorney General. There has to be a voice in this discussion with regard to safety. And very simply, right now, over half of the DUIs in Pennsylvania are drug DUIs. So it's not like the old days where someone's having a couple drinks and they go. A lot of these DUIs are people that are smoking marijuana and drinking at the same time, or just smoking marijuana. Some of the most horrific traffic crashes and deaths that we've seen have been people under those circumstances. And so because of how serious this is, once you put the toothpaste out of the tube, it's not going back in. We have to at least consider the public safety impact of this as we progress. The marijuana right now that we are arresting, that we're getting from kids, it is marijuana that is unbelievably more potent than marijuana from years ago. And oftentimes it's laced with fentanyl and other drugs. We have to be really serious about this and thoughtful and make sure that it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. DePasquale, again in 60 seconds, how would fully legalizing marijuana use help or harm the criminal justice system in Pennsylvania?
In 2017, I came out with a report calling for the regulation and taxation of cannabis, otherwise known as marijuana. I believe it would be smart policy and smart safety for our communities to legalize it. By legalizing it, you would actually make it harder for children to get it. You'd also make sure that the product is safer. You'd also make sure that law enforcement is involved in the drafting of it. And certainly we need to make sure that we have the technology available for that anyone that's driving under the influence, whether it be alcohol or marijuana, is prosecuted fully on that. Look, when I came out with that position, I sort of had one of the bigger shots to the ego I ever had. There was a pro-marijuana newspaper that came to interview me after I came out for this position. And they said, "You're the perfect spokesperson." I said, "Why?" They said, "Well, you're all into health and wellness." I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, you never use it." I said, "That's correct." And I said, "Well, why am I the perfect spokesperson then?" They said, "Because you're so boring." I wish I had not had that type of thing, but I do believe it is smart policy to regulate and tax marijuana. It'd be safer for communities and safer for the people that use it.
Mr. Sunday, 30 seconds for a response.
I'm going to be very direct about this. As a district attorney who has been a career prosecutor, who has fought drug traffickers and everything in between, I promise you that if the thought of legalizing recreational marijuana, if the belief is that would keep the drugs away from kids or make it less easy for them to get them, I promise you that that is absolutely not the case. The children in this world have abilities to find things and obtain things, especially through black markets and through the internet, that none of us had when we were kids. We have to be very thoughtful about this.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our next question, a question we feel we must ask with the election just a few weeks ahead. As Attorney General, Josh Shapiro was heavily involved in efforts to push back against the many lawsuits questioning the vote totals in the last presidential election, including several of them here in Pennsylvania, as you recall. And in 60 seconds, Mr. DePasquale, what would you do to uphold results in future free and fair elections? 60 seconds.
For starters, I've already taken a leadership role on this. It was my investigation into the voter registration system, otherwise known as the SURE system, that made sure it was more secure heading into the 2020 election. That helped make Pennsylvania's 2020 election one of the most secure in our nation's history. And Joe Biden won that election fair and square. Now the voters are going to choose again for all of our races, including at the presidential all the way to state legislator. As Attorney General, regardless of who we vote for, our job is to make sure that any voter that is legally allowed to cast a vote and casts that vote legally has that vote fairly counted. And the person that loses that election, that happens to be a sore loser and files election lawsuits based on that, we cannot let that distort our judgment. We must defend Pennsylvania's law. We must make sure that the voters pick the winner, not the lawyers. This is important for our democracy, and that's something I will make sure that we start on day one as Attorney General, because the next Attorney General will be sworn in before the next president, so we will be dealing with those lawsuits, and I'll be ready for that on day one.
Thank you. Mr. Sunday, in 60 seconds, what would you do to enforce results in future free and fair elections? 60 seconds.
To begin with, the way that I protect democracy is by enforcing the rule of law, period. And before the 2020 election, as district attorney, we actually did a public service announcement with all the police, and we said to everybody in our county that it doesn't matter who you are, who you're supporting, what you're going to, like who you want to win. The reality is we all have to be together, and if you commit a crime, you will be prosecuted. It's that simple. Our elections are the foundational building block of our democracy, which is what has created this wonderful, amazing world that we all live in. And I am an optimist, and I love our country, and our best days are ahead. As a career prosecutor, as a district attorney running to be the Attorney General, I will handle this just like I've handled everything that's come across my desk, in a nonpartisan fashion. It is very simple. You apply the facts to the law. It doesn't matter what your political party is. It doesn't matter if you're right, left, up, down, middle. None of it matters, because our Constitution and our country is what comes first, and that's my guarantee.
Gentlemen, thank you. We have covered some tremendously important topics here tonight for the voters of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and it's time now for our closing remarks. Each candidate, you will have 60 seconds, and we will begin with you, Mr. DePasquale.
Thank you, and thank you to WGL and Dave for being here. Today, you saw our competing visions for Attorney General. Dave even admitted to botched prosecutions, going soft on sexual predators, and having failed convictions on a gang rape case. Myself, I have statewide experience conducting tough investigations, finding over 3,000 untested rape kits, finding 58,000 unanswered phone calls to the Child Abuse Hotline, protecting our children, protecting our seniors, and cracking down on violent rapists. But I also bring the values that are important into this office. The value of knowing hard work, the value of knowing struggle, the value of seeing both sides of the criminal justice system, and the value of knowing how important reproductive freedom is. Our family had to tackle this issue in a very personal way. I have made it clear, I will never prosecute a woman for having an abortion. My opponent won't. My name is Eugene DePasquale. I ask for your vote to be your Attorney General.
Mr. Sunday, you have 60 seconds for a closing statement.
My name's Dave Sunday, and my office, since I've been the district attorney, has prosecuted over 40,000 criminal cases. Again, I'd like to compare those with my opponent, but he literally has never even prosecuted one. He would need a tutorial on day one on how to even find a courtroom, what it means to have an adversarial system, what it means to work through defense attorneys, what it means to advocate in front of a judge, what does it mean to work in front of a jury. Pennsylvanians deserve better. This isn't about political advancement. This is about public safety. That's why I'm running. I'm running because I know that there's a world out there that is very, very dangerous, and I see it every day. My commitment has been as a prosecutor, and I look at the world that my son has to grow up in, and I am afraid of the drugs that are out there. I see what people are doing on the internet. I see the dangers that he faces. I'm running for Attorney General because I know that if our community is not safe, nothing else matters. I'm solely running for this position because this is the position I want to do, and your families are worth it. Thank you so much.
Thank you both, gentlemen, for your time here tonight. It's very important that we covered the topics that we did. And that does it for News 8's Commitment 2024 Attorney General Debate. Before we go, we have a few reminders for you. The general election is Tuesday, November the 5th. Polls will open at 7 a.m. as they always do and close at 8 p.m. Besides Attorney General, you will also be voting for President, U.S. Senate, and House, as well as State Senate, House, Auditor General, and Treasurer. The last day to register to vote is Monday, October the 21st, and the deadline to apply for a mail-in or absentee ballot is by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October the 29th. In case you missed any of that, we have all that information and more, including what you need to bring to vote and what to do if you run into a problem on Election Day, in our voter guide. You can find that right now on our website, WGAL.com. And you can get there just by scanning the QR code you see on your screen with your camera on your mobile device. Join us tonight for News 8 at 10 and 11. Until then, have a great night, everyone. Thank you.